Raven reveals the way to freedom through the underground regenerator club. So you can see how that flows. Raven Reveals is essentially, the Freedom Foundation, the freedom.law is the ecclesiastical fraternal benefit society. And that's really the overall foundation that our goal is to get 90 million souls choosing love. And so this is how we're doing it. Regenerating your spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and economic freedom. And so that's the big container. That's our faith-based organization. And so then, but the Raven Reveals is where our mouthpiece will be, helping basically with the mental aspect of regeneration. The way is the way of mastery, which is teaching the way of the heart. And that is the spiritual mastery. And the underground.law is the trading post where organizations, DAOs, can trade amongst themselves outside of the corporate system that we don't want to be a part of. And the Regenerator Club is basically where all the regenerators, the 6 advanced regenerators, energy, water, food, health, shelter, and weight, that will give people resource freedom. Those are the brands right now. There's a bunch more, but that's the main. Let's scroll down. I just explained all that, so you kind of.
And by the way, Kelly, you know how you met the Dow Universe Club people, Will and the others?
Yeah.
So we had a call with Will. We've spoken to them, and their trust structure is pretty much identical to what Raven's got.
And it's from the same state.
And now it's even from Washington State, so it's pretty awesome. So, so lots of alignment here.
And this is the basic overall why of what we're doing. We're educating and empowering communities with affordable and regenerative energy, water, food, health, shelter, materials, education, communications, transportation, manufacturing, economics, and governance solutions. So those are 12 sectors that we need to give basically thought to for having a community be truly independent in itself and have its own resources, govern itself, manufacture its own stuff, make its own transportation, have its own form of communications, have its own education. Every community has to be truly have all these aspects independent of some central control outside. So that's the mission statement. And the challenge is that most communities do not do this. The solution is that the Freedom Foundation's communities are designed to serve all the needs of all of its pledged members. Very key, pledged. That means we have our life is but the choices we make and the agreements we make, period. So that's why the word pledged is key. So all the needs of all of its pledged members, the Freedom Foundation has collected the most affordable and regenerative energy, water, food, health, shelter, materials, education, communications, transportation, manufacturing, economics, and government solutions that transform communities into thriving regenerative ecosystems for its members and guests. And right now, the physiological needs at the very bottom is where I've focused most of my efforts, because without that, you don't have energy, water, food. You don't have the luxury of thinking about praying and meditating. You're just trying to make the basics work. So that's why we have to be really honest with ourselves, what the real problems are and how to solve them and where to focus at first. So that's why I did that. So that's the overall idea there. You can go next.
Yeah, that's like, we're super on the same wavelength, because that's like, that basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what I put into like our presentation as well, as like, okay, like we're going to build the model of like taking care of all this. Plus within communities, you also have the safety needs through security. You also have belonging needs by being in community and making decisions together and having leadership roles and self-esteem and, basically all the way to self-actualization, because you're being able to pursue your creativity and your passions and your purpose. And that's what the amenities are for. So it kind of shows how the communities that we build can actually meet all of these needs. So it's amazing that you're on the same exact wavelength.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually define it as the 7 bodies. And I'm actually going to be ministering every day very soon at 11 a.m. or 6 a.m. Alaskan time. But basically, the 7 bodies, is your spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, economic, cultural, and political bodies. Basically, take care of all those needs. If you take a pulse on the health of every body that you maintain, whether you know it or not, it basically leads you to self-transcendence if all those bodies are in harmony. In resonance with the people around you. So that's awesome that you guys are on the same wavelength. I figured we're just going to get more and more in resonance over time.
Totally. This is awesome.
It's me and Paul. Paul is, I'll just speak about Paul there. He's one of the foremost electrical engineers. Paul has been inventing for many, many years, but he's just as adept spiritually as he is in electronics and all sciences and engineering. So it's been really amazing having him as my mentor the last 10 years. He's one of my best friends, and he's the one who invented this particular regenerator technology. And what he calls it is magnetic energy recovery. So right now, we have a very patriarchal world and we use the masculine side of energy. There's actually two parts of energy, an electrical and a magnetic. And see, so the electrical is the male part, which is very forceful. It burns you, it can hurt you, but it gets things done. It builds shit. The electromagnetic side is the female side. And what he realized is if you can actually put one pulse in, electrical pulse in, and the female side gives you two back. This is just like creation works, like mitosis or meiosis. He calls it magnetic energy recovery. Isn't that beautiful?
That's amazing. I cannot believe that. Like, you can figure out male and female down to like the smallest particles is like it's in everything. It's like, wow, that's mind blowing.
When a man puts his electrical charge into you, what happens? There's life that is made. You give back the female back more than you can imagine. You're the receiver, but you give too. You create. So we figured that out electronically and so he basically has figured out how to perfectly intertwine the electric and the electromagnetic so that we can literally have a self-running machine. Basically, the real exact amounts, because it's really cool, is we can put 1,000 watts from our battery into our motor, and it gives 1,000 watts back to the battery 15,000 times a second. And the shaft that comes out of our motor goes to another generator, just basically a basic generator you can get anywhere, and it makes electricity. And so that's the really simplicities of how we've made it work, because he has something called magnetic energy recovery. And so he recovers all the magnetic energy that's usually wasted. Just like in life right now, all the women energy is wasted because it used to be matriarchal. So it's everything is fractal all the way down to like our solutions. And I've seen this now by vetting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of technologies, and they all have these similar characteristics that you can apply to all systems. These are universal laws. But go ahead. That's Paul.
My mind's blown.
This is basically the two sides. You got there's a 6D process that we go through, which is basically we go out into the world and we discover, we decipher, we design, and we develop. And that's the back end of the house. And then the front end of the house is deploying and defending. So the back end is the Freedom Foundation, which is all, we're just spending money on solutions, trying to find them, trying to perfect them in all these areas. And then once they get to a certain stage along the technology readiness scale, 1 to 9, this is the basically the NASA technology readiness scale. Once they get to about a 6, 7, they'll come over and really start to work with the deployment and defending team of getting these things into the 12 sectors markets around the world in every market in every country. So that's kind of the front and the back end.
Amazing. Yeah, all these different pieces that you're talking about here, energy, water, food, health, shelter, materials, education, transportation, economics, and governance, is very similar to just all of our different regenerative systems that we've kept a database for in each of these different areas, including how to do governance, how to do economics. And I think I was kind of talking about that last time with like the 10 steps. So there's a lot that we can add together to create the database that can help with all these pieces.
Beautiful. Yeah, this just gets more granular. You can scroll over this. This is really granular. The energy, the water, it goes really to the different homes, the trades, the communities, the goods, the services, and the systems. These are all different ways that you have to pay attention how the market works so you can serve it properly. And we have a lot of change management. This shows all the different plans. Yeah, here we go. Stop here. So the new energy source is the magnetic motor. So that was, so I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm basically ensuring that we have new energy technologies by continuing this for the rest of my existence. But I'm doing it here through this lifetime is, really understanding who and what has the right solutions in alignment with, our mission and our values, and of getting 90 million people to choose love, which is the Maharishi effect, and gets 9 billion. It's basically affected, and we can stop the wars and the silly stuff. But this basically was in South Korea, and that was Andre, the guy in the very upper right picture with the peace sign. We're sitting and having dinner. Andre Slobodovian, rest in peace, love you, bro. He actually, we had that generator up to 10 kilowatts, and I worked with him for like 6 years. His lab basically was burnt down in 2021, in the end of the year, and he was in the lab and he died. And so God. All those pictures you see is no longer. And I've got the video from the aftermath. It's real. And we don't, the police investigation was inconclusive, but, we know what happened there. So this has been a long rodeo, and that's just one of probably like 15 really dramatic stories that I can tell you about my life. They're similar because it's been a combination of Indiana Jones, Jason Bourne, and John Galt is kind of what I've been through. So that there are some brothers who, you know, I give him a lot of love and respect. He still checks in spiritually from time to time, and he's given full yes to go forward into the world with this. You can see on the pictures in the very far left there, the very far left, a little red and orange, red and blue. That's the 10 kilowatt motor that we're building right now. It's basically smaller than the white one, but it's on that red shelf there. So you can go to the next. This is what we're building on the property. So this is basically the first one is what we're building on the property is a 0.5 megawatt power plant. So that's essentially the numbers for a PPA for 10 months at 6 cents a kilowatt hour for a megawatt. So every megawatt we install, we basically make $500,000 in gross revenue at 6 cents. And then this is at 5 megawatts and 50 megawatts. These are the different numbers. Like we're going to be installing a lot of this in Turkey. We'll probably have a number of 5 megawatt power plants in Turkey. We'll probably have a number of 50 megawatt power plants in Alaska, and so on. So this is exactly right here what we're doing on the property. We're acquiring and upgrading power plants. This is the numbers, and you see the green on the far right side. This is what basically, once we do this, it'll be that. And so once we have the money, this is basically, you know, and you can see the pictures there of the infrastructure on the property. It's beautiful. Basically, it's waiting for us. It's been waiting for us for a little bit.
Have you been talking to cities about doing this yet?
Well, what's beautiful about this, and so he's essentially buying his friend's property where he already has hydropower and they're already selling it back. So we're just going to go behind and just increase the load that they sell without no one has to know anything.
Correct. So no, I've done a lot. So you know, I've put on many different hats as a chameleon, as a shapeshifter, as a pretender, because I can download information and become whatever I want really quickly. And so with that in mind, yes, I've talked to many, made relationships with many municipalities from Alaska down to the bottom of Mexico. And I've driven the whole entire West Coast, and it took a few months, and I met with a lot of people. This is when I was first waking up about 2008-9 when I quit my corporate job and traveled for a few years. So yes, I have met with, but I haven't, you know, shared with them all the rabbits in the hat. I just have made relationships, and so that's what the latest work is going to be with the Marine Foundation, making me chief science officer. Is I'll be doing that with basically every technical department in every country on the planet, because now we'll have an office in every embassy in every country on the planet, and I'll be working with their technology development departments from the top down. So we want to top down, bottom up. We need to get 90 million people really quickly. So yeah, and any partnerships you guys have, we would want to include it in our plan so we can cohesively do that together. But we want to basically take this model and replicate it anywhere there's a renewable energy plant or a power plant or a water plant or a waste plant. All utilities for municipalities, we can come in and take care of, we can do what's called energy savings contracts. We can immediately install our stuff and just lower their bills over time. And while we're making the money that they would normally pay somebody else. It's a really simple model.
Amazing. So question on that is, how would, let's say, you know, we wanted to transition to a resource-based economy. Do you think that eventually we would be able to do that with these technologies, or do they need like constant maintenance and a lot, like, is there a lot of cost in them?
The whole goal is to, if we do our job correctly, within 10 to 20 years, all of the infrastructure that it took and the money it took to build the regenerators will literally pay for itself, and we won't need to use money to keep these things going. They'll be so basic in maintenance. The first, like our generator is 8,000 hours before we have to even open it up and put oil in it. That's a full year. And so, you know, it's like, I hope that by 30 years from now, all the regenerators that we build are not being, they've already been paid for, and whoever's using them, whatever communities, are just free. It's just free. That's it. Free energy, free water, free food, free healthcare, free waste management, free transportation, and free shelter, free education, free manufacturing, free communications, free governance, free economics, all of it free, because we don't need it if our resources are there. Everything is gravy. So then our exchange becomes, how creative are you? You know, how much of value have you created for your brothers and sisters is real and not raping them or something that they should have for free anyways. You know, this is the real value. It's going to be a real creative renaissance, you know, when we can get there way quicker than 30 years if everybody just focuses on this plan, you know?
Oh, you're speaking my language. Totally agree.
So
Beautiful.
the solution partners are just some of the people I've been, like I said, I've turned myself into a chemist. I've turned myself into a quantum engineer. I've turned there's the crystal cells. It's a crystal battery. We made, and it harnesses the quantum fluctuations of the vacuum to a quasi-crystalline structure. That battery right there is the carbon batteries. Basically, they're just way better than lithium, and they're from recycled carbon. And they're a really good fit for our generation of our power to have a really light battery that's non-toxic. It's a good part of the strategy. You can scroll down. Technologies is the Tesla tower, the Wardenclyffe tower that's been rebuilt. And it's in Texas, in Paris, Texas. You can look at Viziv Technologies. And I've spoken to the generals that run it. It's military, ex-military. And for whatever reason, I get interesting meetings with interesting people in these areas, and they talk to me. And so he said that when we're ready to roll out, you let me know, brother. I'm like, wow. So and what that is we can transfer wireless power safely, megawatts. And it also will change the 5G. Wirelessly, yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, Solutions Partners. The water deposition technology is basically an air-to-water machine. Every single air-to-water machine that you have on the planet right now is what's called a dew point. So they all work off the dew point. We need a separation of a temperature of 10 to 20 degrees. It gets better with a little more. What we do is we create really, really, really cold mass. It's like a major magnet to water. So it's way quicker, way more efficient. You know, it almost self-runs. We obviously have our own power. So that's our deposition technology, which will basically make water from the air like no other technology on the planet. Plus, we can make the energy to make the water anywhere we want. The solutions partners, more of them, the Eating Green Hydroclimaponics is a really integrated, highly specific climate management system involved with vertical farming and water and other frequency stuff. And they're in Texas, and their stuff is great. The bricks count they get is amazing. And I can do a lot of my other stuff, but ag tech as well. So the cubic farms, they're basically the most efficient use of container farming on the planet. I went up and met with them in Vancouver, and the CEO and the son, they're great. But after I looked at their entire system, I redesigned my system on the right, which is actually I can grow more in my system than they can in theirs. And I'm also going to license all of our regenerators to the cubic farms and then license them our food design systems. And they're totally waiting for that.
Wow. So have you already tested that out too? Like you've been able to grow stuff faster and improve that?
Yep. Data. Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
After I cashed in my 401k and I sold my house and sold my cars and quit General Motors. And so I invested that like 10 to 50 grand a time into different inventors, which you'll see right here. All of those people are either doctors, PhDs, or inventors, or my investors. Every single person I've worked with, I'm transparent. This is in truth, trust, and transparency. I have nothing to hide. And if anybody actually wants to know the truth, they'll just pretty much study my life and they'll find it. And it'll be really a lot easier path for most people. Because all these people I've invested into or they've invested into me. Every single one of them, there's a major story and a major technology behind. So you're seeing just a few highlights. But yeah, I've basically worked for private equity funds as a CTO for hire or a science officer. So this is the first technology I ever invested into. And this is the first website I ever built. You can look at archive.net and look it up, hydrogenoffgridsystems.com 2010. And when I built this, I partnered with a guy who worked with Stanley Myers. Stanley Myers is one of the first real public guys, but not the first, but just real public in the 90s to actually build a self-running car that runs on water. He's put water and he's able to split it and get enough energy out of the hydrogen and the oxygen that came off of that to actually run the car. And, just like you would gas, but you just need water. And then, so basically those systems I was selling. And that one was the first time I bumped into, you could say, the Men in Black. And that basically is, again, a long story on why that is not running a car right now. But again, there's going to be a lot of time for that, hopefully, as we meet in person. And I can stories which are going to be part of Raven Reveals. And it's more content than you can ever imagine. So this right here is just some of the actual devices. So every single device here that you see is a self-running over Unity device.
Wow.
And again, I do the cutting of the metal and the programming of the server and the marketing website and the PR and on stage at the Marriott, whatever it takes. There you go. So that's the big 50,000-foot view and history of, of course, the regenerative economy there. That's the macroeconomic stakeholder model and some basic, really amazing equations about microcities and how to apply all this technology I've got the most effectively. So this is 100% in alignment. And you can take a look at this too. It's got great, this is what we're doing. So.
Amazing. Wow. I'd love to look at all this. This is incredible.